Nothing lasts forever. Plants wither, people grow old, and things eventually go away. If the world is filled with uncertainties, then the fact that nothing is eternal is the one constant. It doesn't care about you or anyone else in the world. But it's because of this fact that we as humans are always seeking for something unchanging. Think about all the cosmetic surgeries out there to preserve one's youth. Think of all the times where you wanted to draw like that one art style you had 3 months ago. Time marches on mercilessly no matter how much you or anyone else would like it. And we as humans want anything that can do something to change that fact. It is for this reason that I think Eternity is one of the most interesting characters that Reverse 1999 has to offer, especially seeing as how it mirrors our own timeline of history with an added touch of time travel and reversal. Eternity has lived through so many eras, yet she herself hasn't changed at all. The way she carries herself and how she treats life is the same as always. Today, I'll be talking about Eternity, her anecdote, and the price of the eternal. At the start of the game, I found Eternity to be one of the most beautiful Reverse 1999 characters out there. And she still is, by the way. And while I don't have her yet, her beautiful design and interesting concept stood out for me. There is no doubt that she is a reference to Julie Winifred Bertrand, who was the oldest known living person at the time of her passing in 2007, with Eternity's real name being Winifred. She's also a reference to the New England vampire panic, more specifically the Mercy Brown vampire incident in Exeter. But I feel that there are also some other interesting connections you can make with her, such as the immortal jellyfish Turupsis dorni or the primordial sea. With so many connections to her, I was really excited to read her anecdote. And when it did drop, I ate it up. But
Objection!
Hold on. Let's clarify some things. Eternity is not a vampire. Not in the traditional sense, at least. In a series of Dusk, we learn more about vampires, and that there are 2 types of them, to be specific. There's the beyond vampires like Valentina, who can turn others into vampires, making them infected like what we see with Semmelweis. We can see Semmelweis in the infected section, but Eternity isn't there nor is she in the beyond section. She is a full-fledged arcanist. My hypothesis is that she engaged in some arcane ritual to achieve this. To how she became immortal, we don't know. But the fact that she isn't a vampire makes her anecdote all the more poetic. Eternity's anecdote follows the story of one Brian Finn, a retired film director on the verge of death as he recounts his life from the pages of his notebook, his encounters with a certain eternity, and how throughout his life he was unable to capture the real essence of vampires. Despite Brian being such a successful film director with his hit film New England Dream, because he couldn't show the true beauty of vampires, he was left unsatisfied throughout the rest of his life. He spent 40 years on it. No, in his words, he squandered 40 years on it. He spent so much time editing that film, but he couldn't fill the void. And so he spent even more years in pursuit of this ideal portrayal of vampires. And it all started with a fateful encounter. In Brian's childhood, he was pretty much a wimp. He was bullied and pushed around by the other kids. He didn't really have a backbone nor a set goal for himself. He was sort of wandering the world aimlessly. One day, he was bullied into a shabby cabin by his classmates to see if the rumors about there being a vampire were real. And as the door closes, Brian is still there all alone until a hue of blue envelops the cabin. And then, she appears. She is beautiful and brimming with life. She's a bit playful even. While Brian is confused and is filled with questions, the elusive lady hushes him to sleep. And ever since that day, Brian Finn was convinced that vampires were real. As Brian grew up to become a man and fought in the Second World War, he would have never thought that he would meet her again. But fate has its ways. In the club, Brian spots her in the distance, looking pristine as ever. He approaches her, notebook in hand, telling her that he has met her before, long ago, but she acts aloof while keeping a playful attitude. Brian then insists that she is a vampire, but gets shot down by her. The more he insists, the more Winifred shoots him down. She closes the conversation by hinting at the extreme mentality of the Second World War and that they should both keep a low profile. But once again, Brian proclaims that she is a vampire. But before he leaves, she gives him her business card. He puts the exquisite business card in his pocket. Her name is Winifred. The war raged on, and slowly Brian and his friends followed the effects of it. Some died in battle, some disappeared without a trace, and Brian almost became one of them too. A bullet to the chest almost claimed his life, but Winifred's card stopped it. He was perfectly fine except for the usual joint aches from all the marching. And ever since that day, he saw himself fully in pursuit of the perfect vampire, no longer wandering in the world. This chase would be Brian's eternity. Despite going after it with everything he had, he would always miss the mark. So much as he fell, he came back up again to run after it. He had set his eyes on a star, and he was not going to take his eyes off it anytime soon. After the war, Brian would get into filmmaking with a trusty notebook still in hand. He wanted to make a film for vampires and himself, something that he could be proud of. Fresh out of university, he found himself working as a cameraman. Despite the not-so-remarkable job, he would still ask around looking for every opportunity to work on his flick. His superior warns him that the next client is very, very rich, and if he fumbles it with his vampire talk, he'll be officially kicked out. Brian opens the door, and he is once again met with Winifred. Out of all the places to meet her again, he never thought that it'd be here. She looks as young as ever. Brian tells her that they have met before, but she says that she truly can't recall until she shows her the name card with a bullet hole in it. These are more hints to Winifred's superficiality. When Brian tries to tell her how she seems so familiar to him, she takes it as him trying to strike a deal with her and remarks how he needs to try harder than that. This is Brian approaching her as an old acquaintance, but she sees it as another business transaction. He was talking to the Winifred he met back then in the worn-down house, but in front of him only lies the businesswoman Eternity. The businesswoman Eternity only cares about money. She sees an opportunity in the New Age market and allies herself with the Order of Enlightenment for her own profits, even if those guys are morally questionable. She gives the Manus followers Kimberly's wind-up toy without thinking much, even if it would be the actions that bring Angel Nala a world of pain. Brian completely ignores his superior by immediately pitching his vampire movie to Winifred. He goes on excitedly about how, if she was the lead, they could definitely change what people thought about vampires. Winifred does commend the idea, but chooses not to. She says that it's a punishment to be sitting for hours staring at a screen for long periods of time, and that it would do damage to the skin that no cosmetics can fix. So instead, she wants something like The Night Show, where they can all sit down and talk about the most superficial and fashionable things, or alternatively, a show that captures life's moments and stitches them together. In a way, these are also things that last for eternity. While each moment is different, in something like this, their essence remains unchanging. They are things that eternity won't dismiss when they eventually wear against time. They are merely things that she uses to keep up with the trends. Brian continues to film the everyday of Eternity. She turns an encounter with a disgruntled customer into a comedic scene. All of the shots are a mess. The composition was unbalanced from her eating all of the grapes. The lavish props in the background go against the message of the film. Eternity does not care about the artistic value of the film or anything at all. She is a capitalist through and through, a vampire of our modern day. She's not the ideal vampire that Brian had in mind since childhood. Ever since then, a rift has formed between Winifred and Brian. While Brian continued to pursue his vampire dreams and would have an illustrious film directing career, he would never truly make the perfect vampire film in his eyes. While New England Dream was a box office hit, a film that the critics absolutely loved, it was imperfect and hollow in Brian's eyes. He didn't care about the money. He even withheld the film tape until the investors had to wrestle it away from him. Back to the present, Brian is at his deathbed, still clawing with regrets, fighting off the investors in his head even after all these years. His condition worsens. His grandchildren rush to get a doctor, and the illusionary figure appears in front of him once more. It's Winifred. This is their reunion after so long. She watched the copy of New England Dream that was sent to her, and even enjoyed it. But like Brian said, it was missing something. And the element that was missing was none other than time. The vampire of New England Dream was granted eternity, but she didn't have her soul change with time. Time is uncaring. It marches forward without waiting for anyone. As time continues to wear down, things get forgotten. It knows not of clemency. And so with Brian now understanding the fatal flaw in his film, he asks Winifred if she would still accept a copy of it. And Winifred says no. Not because of the fatal flaw, but because it is something so imbued with passion and love, it will eventually get destroyed by time. Eternity, who has lived so long and will continue to do so, will eventually see the day when the tape breaks down. She can't bear to see such a precious thing wither away time and time again. And so, eternity takes Brian back to the dream of his childhood. The cool sea breeze, the dancing tables and chairs, the familiar figure in the old worn-down house. It has always been Winifred. Like welcoming an old friend, Brian Finn is laid to rest. Thus, he lived a life fulfilled. He never owed anything to anyone, be they colleagues, lovers, children, or friends. And not for a single moment did he abandon his ideals. In memory of a brave old friend who steadfastly held himself against the rapids of time. It is because Brian's life was so short that he was able to firmly grasp onto his ideals. His passion never eroded. He followed that shining star until the very end. While eternity, on the other hand, who is cursed to live forever, has lost meaning to her life because there is no end to it. Both of them are the opposites of each other. Brian has a loving family and grandkids, while eternity only has her servants in her company. If eternity doesn't even dare to take in material things like films or other things, then she wouldn't even consider pursuing friendship and love. Brian's story reminds me of Ouroboros, the snake devouring its own tail. He is trapped by his own will to solely stick to his one goal. He could have been even more successful if he let go of his obsession and went after more general things. You may think that it is sad that he wasn't able to fulfill his goal in the end, that he was in pursuit of the impossible in the first place, as eternity is not an actual vampire. But that's when you only look at it from a shallow perspective. The real reason why Brian was so obsessed with finding a true vampire was because he wanted something unchanging, something unaffected by time. What he was after was not the vampire itself, but the idea of something that lasts forever, and he firmly succeeded by grasping onto his stubborn ideals until the very end. And while Ouroboros is consuming its own tail, it is a symbol of cyclic renewal. It is unable to die because it is eating itself. It is a symbol of eternity. And I think that if Brian was playable, he would definitely be of the Star of Lattice. His passion reminds me of Windsong, and his quote-unquote irrational behavior is very much like that of an arcanist. I think that this is a great fit for him as well because Mineral is weak to Star, and Eternity is a Mineral Afflatus character. He was able to win over Winifred because if he didn't, she would have never been at his deathbed. She would have simply forgotten about him like all the many other faces she sees every day. I'm sure that she has definitely tried doing that though, shown by the ending of the anecdote and how she comes to visit Brian in the last moments of his life. But it is simply a futile task for someone who's lived so long and will continue to outlive even more people. She clings onto things that will exist as long as she will. Money, the night show, and the vanity of humans. Her personality is the culmination of what has stayed constant in human society. No matter the era, people will be greedy. No matter the era, people will always chase after cheap happiness. But we aren't eternity. We're humans. Because we are finite, that gives our lives meaning. Eventually, time will break us and we will lose our sense of humanity and values if we weren't. Our lives are short. It's best to give everything you've got to do the things that you love. Let's live in the moment. Live without any regrets. I'll chase after my own eternal passions with everything I've got. With the short lifespan of a human. I may not last for hundreds of years, but just having my passions with me, I'm fulfilled. So for me, I'll continue creating for the short years I have left.